Welcome to Better Together with your hosts, Emily Italia and Jennifer Morrow. When we all work together, we are stronger and can accomplish more for the kingdom of God. And now, here are the hosts of Better Together, Emily Italia and Jennifer Morrow.
Welcome back, everybody. Nice to be back again with Jen Morrow, and I'm Emily Italia.
Hi, good morning. It's morning now. I know when we're recording this, but it won't be morning.
It'll be morning when it airs the first time.
The first time. But everybody else, when you're driving home at rush hour, good afternoon.
That's right.
How are you?
Oh, boy. Good. I think we might see some sun later today. So
Yeah, I think that'll be good.
So.
I will admit, I woke up this morning late, which never, well, it always happens. I'm lying. And then I thought, that's okay. I'll just put my hair in a ponytail and hit the road. And then I thought, oh my goodness, this is on YouTube too.
That's right.
Get
now
your act together, Morrow. Get your act together. And then I still made it here half an hour early. So do not tell my conscious brain that this drive is shorter than I think it is, or I will be late.
That's right. And it's interesting how traffic affects things different days. And I think this might be the teachers'
Oh, right.
thing in New Jersey.
No wonder I got here so early. Okay.
There you go.
Tell my conscious brain right now not to leave late.
Give
then.
yourself another 10 minutes.
Yes. So how are you?
All right.
Yeah.
Boy, this year is flying by.
Oh, too much.
So we're deep in All Souls month, and I don't know if you had something specific going on for All Souls in your personal life or in your parish, but I was going to share something that I've been doing on my Facebook
That's
page.
what I wanted to surprise you with, because I was like, if she
no.
doesn't want to talk about it, too bad, I'm going to say it.
Oh, go ahead. You tell it.
No, you tell. Okay, so I'm going to introduce it. I'll be like, what have you been doing for All Souls, All Saints this month? And then she's going to say it because it is blowing my mind, and a few of them have made me cry. So why don't you tell everybody what you've been working on?
Well, this is not like a yay me moment. It's more of a, it just kind of occurred to me. You know how during the month of Thanksgiving, people like to post things saying how grateful they are for one thing or another. It's just a nice practice to, it's kind of a month of gratitude leading up to Thanksgiving. And when I was at the vigil for the All Saints Day Mass, I was just contemplating being grateful. And I was like, wonder if I could bring something in that relates to all the people who have passed on in my life that I value. I could do like a remembrance of someone who has died in my family or friend's circle every day of November. And I'm like, wow, can I get through the whole month? Do I have enough? I might have to repeat a little on the back end, but so far, so good. I've had somebody new every day, which, and get to this stage in life. There have been a lot of people who have gone on before us. But it's just been such a wonderful opportunity to relive some of those memories with them, even if they were very minimal. Some of these people I haven't been part of my life for 20 years.
Right.
So it's been kind of, and it's fun to see family members then chime in with their own stories and expound on that. So
it's really sweet. Like the first day you had it on your social media, they were like, they're pictures from like when you were young. So it's like pictures of your grandparents as example, right? And it's like these black and white photo, or not, maybe they weren't black and white.
There were some. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that 1970s orange going on in the background that we can all relate with. And then like you wrote, like memories of them.
And I was trying not to make it into a novel because you can be very, I don't know, at some point people stop reading. It's just, a social media post. So I was like, all right, I just want to kind of give some of the highlights, some of the experiences I had with them in my life. And since then, I'm like, wow, this really needs to be a memory book I can share with family down the road. So I think that's where this project is going. But so far, it's just a nice little memory jog and opportunity to remember to pray for that person that day and just, remember the things that they taught me.
Right. So, but also like as your friend, like when you're sharing these and sharing the pictures, I can kind of see, like when you share some of the stories, I'm like, maybe that's where she gets that treat. Or, that like a story. And I'll be like, I can totally see Em doing that too. And then, like seeing the pictures of the family members because I can see the resemblance. So
yeah,
it's really fun.
It surprised me even. So,
it's
I'm
sweet.
sure you see that too in your family pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because like seeing you do that, like I have this box at home. It's full of my grandfather's cufflinks. My mom was going through stuff after my grandmom passed quite a while ago. And she was like, nobody wants these cufflinks from your grandfather who died when I was like in second grade, right?
Oh, wow.
But I still feel that connection. We were close. And I was like, I'll take them. I mean, what am I doing with this giant box of cufflinks? But like, I'm finding shirts and like putting them on. Like, I'm wearing a men's shirt sometimes just so I can wear the cufflinks because I love them.
And that's such a special connection because you're not connecting just with the item. It's
No.
the memory associated with it, the person associated.
And
with
he did
it.
some pretty cool stuff. Like he was one of the first people to ever fly on a Concorde jet.
Really?
Yeah. So he has cufflinks from the Concorde that they gave everybody who was the first on the Concorde jet.
How exciting!
Yeah. So there's some really neat ones in there.
Now you need to do this on your Facebook.
I know. Maybe I do. So keep up the good work. We like reading
you.
it.
Thank you. That's
I think
awesome.
it's a good example for other people. Something they might want to pick up or share with their kids because it's really beautiful.
So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Personally, nothing. Just running late to work every day like usual. But no, you know what I'm doing for November or not, and into December is I brought the book too. And I'm doing a consecration to Mary, and then the book is called 33 Days to Morning Glory, and then it ends on December 8th, the Immaculate Conception.
And that's by Father Michael Gately.
Yes.
And you're going to laugh. He was in one of my classes at Franciscan University.
No way.
Yes. He was one of the young men who was discerning the priesthood at the time. Of course, he's very good looking. So all the girls were like, oh, there goes another one. But he was a fantastic young man, so humble. And I know he's done some amazing publications. So
yeah, I was just, we're busy. Everybody's busy. And I was like, I want to slow down. And not just because it's Advent. I just want to slow down. Or not, it's not Advent yet, but leading up to Advent.
Smart.
And so Father Jason Rocks, who's the diocesan chancellor in Camden, Diocese of Camden, he's also the pastor of Holy Eucharist in Cherry Hill, and he's leading this. And so I decided to sit, to do it. And I thought, well, what's the difference between this and like a regular retreat or something, But
right.
it's heavy stuff. It's a consecration, even though the reading is like one page a day, but it's not easy to wrap your mind around, and I'm glad about that. It's not meant to be.
Right.
So right now it's a wonderful process, and I love it. And what I love about it is that Father Rocks drives home, and the book obviously drives home, is Mary wants us to be saints, right? And following our baptismal call also to live out Christ's will in our life. So I thought that was also a good thing to start in November, since we start out with All Saints Day and All Souls Day. So it kind of all came together at the right time.
Fantastic.
I'd say a coincidence, but we all know that's not true.
No, never is.
Yeah. So
excellent.
But,
I'm going to have to dig out my copy and go back and do that.
yeah, I love it. I really love it. So, but we will be talking about All Saints and All Souls today because it's November and the month of remembrance, so to speak. But did we want to promote some of the things going on in around the diocese and around the state?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm holding this up. I don't know if the camera can see it, but our newest edition of the Monitor, the November edition, we have Blessed Carlo Acutis's mother, Antonia Salzano Acutis, came to the Brick Parish, St. Dominic Parish, for the consecration of the shrine that's dedicated to her son, Blessed Carlo. And she actually brought the relic to its place of repose and prayed before. It was just very meaningful. If anybody wants to see it, I know they have the live stream is posted on YouTube if anyone wants to view the Mass. And then she spoke afterwards. It's youtube.com/Trenton Diocese. And then under there, they have their videos posted. Just scroll down and look for the Mass for the consecration of the shrine to Blessed Carlo.
It was so beautiful because I know she was visiting a couple of states. I think she visited Philly, New Jersey, New York. I think Texas slipped in somehow. But when I saw that she was coming to Brick, was it, you said St. Dominic's?
Yes, St. Dominic's in Brick.
I was like, holy moly, to see that she was coming so close. And was it packed? I can only imagine the church was packed.
It was standing room only in the back. Yeah, it was really amazing. And they, of course, have just had the new installation of the pieces that came from the Asbury Park Parish and His Holy Spirit. So, everything was ready for that. Just what a beautiful celebration.
And I know that the Diocese of Trenton has a Eucharistic Miracles exhibit that y'all created.
So that was actually based on Blessed Carlo's website, where he pulled together all that information on the Eucharistic miracles and has been traveling the Trenton diocese, and now it's been traveling other dioceses too. Did you just left the Camden diocese?
Yes, it was the Blessed Carlo exhibit was in Blackwood, Our Lady of Hope, at the beginning of the month. And then from what I hear, it was, we wrote a couple articles about it in the Catholic Star Herald. So you can read those if you would like. I highly encourage it. And then it'll be back. The exhibit will be back at a couple of our parishes starting in 2024 because it's off visiting other dioceses from what I hear, and obviously back in Trenton as well.
I was talking to Josue Ariola, who was instrumental in getting this exhibit put together, and he had said that there actually been requests coming from outside the states, from other, California even, and it's of course too big to transport something like that. But and they have a dedicated team that moves from place to place every time it needs to go to a new parish, and it's actually it's in the story that's in the November magazine, but just kind of talks about their journey and putting it together each time, and they're having adoration.
It's a big exhibit. Like it's not just like something you set up and walk away. It's large.
And there's this place of repose for the Holy Eucharist. That's I think you're meant to walk through the exhibit into each of the rooms, and then at the end you adore the Eucharist there.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, just what a wonderful opportunity. So, definitely look. The Trenton website, dioceseoftrenton.com/Eucharistic-miracles-exhibit. And then it'll give you the listing of where it's going to be next and give you a little description also of what to anticipate.
Spoiler alert on that story that ran in the Catholic Star Herald. I'm going to share it really quick because it was beautiful. But reporter for the Catholic Star Herald, Pete Sanchez, when he went to visit the exhibit in Blackwood, he happened to be there when a mother and her son were there, and the son has the same kind of cancer that Blessed Carlo had.
Oh, no way.
And so he ended up speaking with them, and it was really moving. That's in the article, but yeah, I mean, the fantastic part that it's for families. So
that's beautiful
as well. So all right, quick Diocese of Camden plug.
Please.
Can I do that? All right. We in the Diocese of Camden, if you're around or if you want to drive there, which is a beautiful South Jersey area, the Catholic Climate, I can't say it, Covenant. I already need to practice it. For those who, the Catholic Climate Covenant, the founder is going to be visiting Cherry Hill on November 15th at 7 p.m. at St. Thomas More. And he's going to be talking about caring for a common home, kind of related to obviously Pope Francis and Laudato Si. But this organization's actually been around for quite a while, since the early 2000s, with the help of the USCCB. Nice. And actually a couple of our parishes in the Diocese of Camden have launched their own Catholic Climate Covenant local chapters. So if you're interested in learning more about climate and or establishing maybe a environmentally friendly ministry at your parish, please come out and listen. It should be a great get together. There'll be a lot of talks about the environment and then how you can help. So again, that's 7 p.m. November 15th, St. Thomas More Parish in Cherry Hill.
Fantastic. That'll be great.
So this month, we are talking about All Souls, All Saints, and, bereavement and burial rites. And if anybody tuned into the Talking Catholic podcast a couple weeks ago, Father Jason Rocks, who I mentioned, the diocesan chancellor, talked a lot about what the Catholic Church teaches when it comes to burial. So, we thought that we would also talk about, we go a different route, obviously. We'll be talking about bereavement ministries and maybe some pre-planning. Right.
And just giving people some idea of what to anticipate. So, often you're coming to a funeral with, in some sort of state of shock or surprise and not really sure what the process looks like. So this is an opportunity to hear from people who work in that ministry regularly, how they meet with the families, how they counsel them, and what to anticipate in a Catholic funeral liturgy.
Right. So everybody just hang on for a sec, and we'll be back with our first guest.
Father Benedict Groeschel.
Some great people have shown respect for God. Can I read you a little quotation from Albert Einstein, who many times showed a great respect for religion and was one of the great admirers of Pope Pius XII for his stand against the Holocaust during the Second World War. Einstein wrote, "The fairest thing we can experience is the mysterious. is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of all true art and science. A knowledge of the existence of something we can't penetrate, of the manifestations of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which are only accessible to our minds in their most elementary form. It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitute the truly religious attitude. Oh my, so beautifully said.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Too often Christians walk through life as if their circumstances had the final word, as if a bad doctor report, IRS audit, or mean boss were all powerful. We need to start thinking and living as if God is all powerful, because He is. When Paul was in prison, waiting to be beheaded, he wrote things like, "I am pressed, not crushed, persecuted, not abandoned, struck down, not destroyed. In all these things we are more than conquerors because of Him who loved us." He knew he had the upper hand because he had God's hand. A real champion isn't someone who wins all the time. It's someone who can't be defeated. Christians are supposed to walk through life like real champions. People who face the same struggles and trials anyone else does, but unlike anyone else does. Because we saw the final score and we know who wins. I don't know what you're facing today, but I know who has your back, so hold your head up high. Like St. Paul, you're more than a conqueror. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
And welcome back to Better Together. I'm Emily Italia here with Jennifer Morrow. And on the phone with us today, we have Lee and Linda Brennan. They are parishioners of St. Paul's in Princeton for, you're going to have to tell me, Lee and Linda, how many years you've been there now, because I know you predate my existence there.
42 years, Emily.
22?
42.
I was close.
Oh, wow, you were close. Yeah.
So Lee and Linda have had many wonderful roles in our parish, but the one that I know them most from is the St. Paul's Bereavement Ministry. And we were hoping that you would talk with us today about what is a bereavement ministry and what ultimately do you do when you're working with families who are coming in to plan a Catholic funeral?
Well, Emily, we, first of all, find so much fulfillment in this ministry. I know I speak for Lee when I say that. It is a beautiful, beautiful ministry. We, of course, know people and friends who have suffered the loss of their loved one, and especially very, very difficult when it's a child. But we usually get a contact from Monica at our parish, and at that point, then we reach out to the grieved family. We introduce ourselves as members of the bereavement team and ministry at St. Paul. Specifically, send our sympathy, our condolences, and offer our assistance in any way if they would like our help. We most times people are at that point very overwhelmed. They are raw. They are very emotional. Some don't even know how we can help them. So most times we offer, first of all, just to meet them in person. And I think that helps a lot to have that personal contact.
Absolutely. I think having that personal touch must be a source of comfort for them in a very difficult time.
It really is. And, when people are willing to come and meet with us in person, we pray with them. We listen to them. We, ask them to talk about their loved one. We, and then offer our help in making the plans for the readings, or if they would like any participation from family members. It takes time, and it's a beautiful, beautiful time together. And people really appreciate that. They really appreciate the effort, and they appreciate the help.
Linda will come in usually with her iPad and take them to the website at St. Paul's, which gives them the roadmap for selecting readings, and then we talk and walk through the liturgy step by step and how they can incorporate family members, try and give a little guidance on the remembrance, to 3 to 5 minutes and kind of the topics to stay with. And I think it really helps. You kind of see it develop over it's usually going to be a 3 to 5 day period from the death till the funeral, and then there's always a follow-up after the funeral.
That's right. And I think the fact that the website is so well developed and so well defined that it really gives people an awful lot of help in making their selections. I think people just don't know where to start. And I think that's where Lee and I come in and other members of the team come in. It's people are grateful. They have ideas, and some come in with their own suggestions, which is great. And I think the fact that people know that their family members can be involved, that helps too, because it just becomes so much more personal that way.
Lee and Linda, this is Jen. So nice to meet you. Thank you for being on the show. Do you find that people are surprised when you call? Like, are they surprised that there's a bereavement ministry?
Yes, they most definitely are. In fact, the last funeral that we just did was this past Monday, and it was a sign of very, very surprised, and also, well, why do I need help?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sometimes the question we get, why do I need help? And because I think they might be under the impression that it's done by the clergy. And so when we tell them what our role is and how we can help them if they want the help, that is very appreciative.
And then this one ended up with the wife being very grateful,
Mm-hmm.
and actually it turned out there was a real connection. We ended up knowing her from past work in the school. But anyway, and that happens a lot too in our parish.
It happens an awful lot. I think with the fact that Lee and I have been in this parish since 1981, we've just moved through different ministries. And as a former teacher, I was a teacher for 20 years at St. Paul, so I know so many of the families, and we've just St. Paul's is our second home. That's all I can say.
I'm sure that comes through when you're visiting with people. Just having that additional connection to a parish. It's a genuine caring about the person and what they're going through and what the family is going through. So it's not quite the same as dealing with a funeral director, which I'm sure they are incredibly well versed in dealing with that, but someone who's particular to the practice of the Catholic faith and what takes place at a Catholic funeral, I think it's very helpful to have someone there with just lots of
our
experience.
funeral liturgy is so
beautiful
rich and so beautiful. And I think when people get into it, they realize that, and I don't know that they fully appreciate, how good
and how comforting it is. How comforting it can be.
Yeah, and how much thought is into that liturgy.
I think it's also, a real testament to a bereavement ministry in the fact that somebody's passed away, you're at your lowest, right? And sometimes when somebody passes away, people actually go the other way. They don't come near you, because not near you, but not like you didn't take a shower or something.
Maybe don't know how to approach
right.
you.
You don't know how to approach. Whereas you guys are diving in. You're diving in at, one of the lowest points of somebody's life to say, we're here to help you. We're not running away. We're here. And I feel like if you're the other person on the other side of that, that must be extremely comforting.
Well, I think especially if the people are willing to or have the time, and most do have time to come and actually meet in person. And I think that there's just a comfort. There's just a comfort with meeting the people and then praying with them and just listening to them. And it's a very it's just a very emotional time. I mean, there's tears. There's it's just a very emotional time. But it's also, to me, that certainly enriched our life. I can't tell you how much the fulfillment of walking with people during this time, as you say. My father died in 1983, and I really feel that we just didn't. I was only 35 years old at that point, but I felt that we were not involved at all. And Lee had the opposite experience because he was able to help with the planning of the funerals for his mom and dad and brother and aunts, and it just was so much better for him. You know, I just feel like almost my dad got cheated in some way.
I think that what Linda's saying is for the people, that's one of the questions was, I think once they get in, they understand that helping to plan, I know it was for me, for my relatives, it really helps with the grieving process. You know, you're doing something for your mom and dad, your brother, and as you go through it, it makes you think about that person when you're picking the readings and deciding who to bring up the gifts. Let's get the grandchildren, or let's do this. It's a whole process that I think is very helpful in that week. And then I know there's several people who then, after the funeral, stayed in contact with Linda, meeting them for lunch and for the next year or so, as they, until they were able to move on. But they kept in contact, and they'd call and they'd meet, and because they got comfort.
I try to remember and send cards, periodically during the course of the year, and I think families really appreciate that, that they've not been forgotten, and that you still remember their loved one, and they appreciate that little gesture too.
And that's, I think, very unique to your ministry and to the Catholic experience of a funeral, to say we're accompanying you, but we're not accompanying you today and then we're done. It's a continued accompaniment. So they're allowed to grieve as long as they need to.
I certainly had over 100 people, and we typically have over 100 people that come to our remembrance mass, for people who have died in the past year, where we light candles for each of them. And people come up and get the candle of their loved one. It's an absolutely beautiful mass, and you can really see the emotion in people. And there's typically, because it's a parish, people who've lost somebody know somebody else who lost somebody, and you'll see them getting together after the mass to talk and hug, and it's quite an emotional night.
It was beautiful. I was so glad to be able to attend that this year, and I get to see it from the choir loft, so I get to see all the candles down front, and I love how they read the names of all those who have passed away in the last year, and there's a little musical interlude in between the names, so it gives you that other opportunity to commemorate that loved one and to process the loss.
I think the visual, as you said, Emily, from the choir loft, it must be really something else, because between the pictures on the altar of all the people who have passed away over the course of the year, in addition to others, and then the candles with the names, and it is just a very, very beautiful night. It really is.
What advice would you have for others who are helping someone grieve? Because you've had so much experience in assisting people, walking with people on this journey.
Listen.
I think it's just, if you can just listen to people and let them talk. I think it's such a tough time for them, and I think, just being available is important. I had a friend who, she was the major caretaker of her dad, and even before her father passed away, I would see her and we'd talk and just listen to her, and I was just in such awe of her commitment to him, and how she was a very young girl to begin with, too, herself, with a family of her own, but it was just a beautiful thing to watch. And then when he did pass away, I think she just felt that she needed to make sure that this was absolutely a very beautiful send-off for her dad. She had spent so much time taking care of him, and she wanted it to be almost perfect for him.
We're always there for the bereavement people are the acolytes, and we also are available. We'll tell them if there's, at the last minute, if they have a young person doing a reading, that we've heard all the readings so many times, that we'll just step in, and that gives them a little bit of comfort too, that relaxes them.
Because sometimes, they have great intentions that they want to, but at the moment it's just too hard, and they just don't feel that they can get through it. So, we're always there for backup.
So the bereavement team doesn't just kind of walk with them like before and after, but they'll actually go to the service or to the mass?
Oh
yeah, we're
absolutely there. Lee is always a acolyte. I always sit with the family and just kind of give them some direction because they're not everybody is tuned into the liturgy. Not everybody, they're not always churchgoers, so they're looking for direction.
We're there usually an hour before we set up the
set
church,
up the altar,
put out the candles, and set everything up for the priest, and then we're there as they arrive to greet them and help them. There was occasionally you'll get one where it's cremains and there's no funeral director involved, and in that case we'll explain where they sit, how to come in, how do you want to do this, do you want to kind of process in, or just we're there ahead of the Mass to do all that too, to help them through the liturgy and how to figure out what they have to do.
How many people are on your bereavement ministry? Is there like a team?
Well, I think there's actually five of us.
Five of us.
Five of us. Lee and I, as a husband and wife team, another woman who is incredibly devoted to it also, and then
Stephanie Zepka is the woman, and
then Tony Montrone is the head of our bereavement ministry.
Yeah, and then Jane Coupin will help occasionally as a lector.
Yeah. So we're always open to having more help.
We could use more help.
We could certainly use more help. As Emily, you saw from the choir loft, 82 people, died this year. So
Tony, we've done 313 funerals since in the last 4 years. So that's
wow.
A lot of funerals. And during the winter, we will sometimes do 2 or 3. We've had times where we did 3 funerals in a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's
a little hard.
Yeah, we come home and go to bed.
I do. I'm exhausted. I'm drained emotionally along with the family.
I know all the families who benefit from your wonderful ministry appreciate, probably in ways they don't even realize, just knowing that someone is there taking care of the details and making sure everything goes off as planned, and when they're in a point when they can't really focus on all those details. So a blessing.
The deacons, both Deacon Jim and Deacon Frank, have said that, thanked us, and they said, with doing all the details and setting up, it allows the clergy to focus on the liturgy and their role, if they're being brought to account, so that they, we take care of all this other stuff, that they can focus on what they need to focus on.
Even as to the point where we have a book where the readings are in the book, even if the gospel is chosen by the celebrant, we put the gospel in so that we take care of all of that, so that people don't have to worry about bringing up a copy of their reading or things like that. We just try to cover as many of the details as possible.
Well, thank you both so much for being willing to talk about your ministry and for coming on the program today. And keep up the great work. And anyone who's a member of St. Paul's who's listening, note that they could definitely use your help.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back after a quick break.
It started like it does for many people, question my faith and question authority. And I feel that the reason why I left was the draw of the world. The world was pulling me away. Some people would say, Satan was working on me. He did not want me in church. He wanted me to be desperate. He wanted me to have the thoughts of suicide. I started to realize that a lot of the things that I had experienced in my life were a result of my rebellion against God and against authority. Coming back to the church is the first step in healing from all of the hurts of the world. I went from being desperate and in despair to finding hope and encouragement for the future. I'm on God's team. I know who I belong to, and I know where I'm going, and there's nothing that can separate me from God's love.
Take another look at the Catholic Church. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Hello, I'm Bishop David O'Connell, the Bishop of the Diocese of Trenton, and this is a Eucharistic moment. Blessed Carlo Acutis, the teenager who in our own time cataloged all the Eucharistic miracles in the Church's history, wrote, "Every day I live the Holy Communion as a constant dialogue with Jesus, as an authentic hope. The Eucharist is my highway to heaven. To always be close to Jesus, that's my life plan. I'm happy to die because I've lived my life without wasting even a minute doing things that wouldn't have pleased God. I offer all the suffering I will have to suffer for the Lord, for the Pope, and the Church. The more Eucharist we receive, the more we will become like Jesus, so that on earth we will have a foretaste of heaven."
Hi, everybody. This is Jen Marram with Emily Italia, and welcome back to Better Together. We are talking about All Souls, All Saints Month, bereavement ministry, and Catholic burials and the importance of planning ahead. And as such, we have our next guest. We have Debbie Moore. She is the Assistant Director for Cemetery Marketing and Outreach for South Jersey Catholic Cemeteries, Diocese of Camden. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning. Nice to be with you both today. I appreciate the invite.
Well, thank you for accepting. So we just got off the phone with two who work in the bereavement ministry in the Diocese of Trenton, and we just wanted to shift plans. What do you call that?
A reroute.
Thank you. Emily's my words.
Gears.
Thank you. Yes, gears. Thank you.
Like the car.
Yes, people, I am a writer who has no words. We wanted to shift gears a little, Debbie, and maybe explain a little bit about what South Jersey Catholic Cemeteries does, or any diocesan cemeteries office, how they accompany those who have lost a loved one.
Okay, great. So I guess you could look at it from two perspectives. One is an at-need. Of course, we help to bury the dead. And then there's the pre-need part of it as well, which is to help people to think about where they'd like to be buried and how they would like to be buried, so that they could plan ahead. So we kind of work with our constituents, for lack of a better word, and try to guide them in making the decisions on how they would like to be buried and the location, even to consider whether they wanted to be cremated, because we are permitted to do that within the Catholic Church's teaching, or if they want to do a full body burial. And of course, if you choose to be cremated, it's very important to understand the Catholic Church's teaching and the importance of burying the cremated remains, regardless of whether you wanted to do a ground burial and place the remains into a niche, which is a little kind of like a little box. We have columbariums, which are for a community that have many drawers, so to speak, or you could do a private little cabinet where it would just be for your family, and then there's same idea with a little box or a drawer that you would place the urn in, or the actual box that they come in is fine as well. It doesn't have to, your remains don't have to be in an urn. So I think we help them and we guide them on making the decisions, and we try to educate them on the importance of burying the loved ones.
And I think it's important to notice, since we're I have no words today. I've only had one cup of coffee. I think it's important to note that when you're talking about cremation, one thing that the Catholic Church teaches is that it should be in a final place of repose, not to take an urn home and put it in a living room. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And the reason for that is clearly, the person has done the works of Jesus, of the Holy Spirit. They've taken the Eucharist, so they've lived a Christian life. And so you would want to place that individual in a sacred place to await the resurrection, await eternal life. So it's important to place them in a cemetery that's been blessed. Doesn't have to be a Catholic cemetery. It could be non-denominational, but it needs to be blessed. So yes, it's very important. But also, sometimes people don't. Many times, because cremation is kind of new, so to speak, they don't realize that they need to do that. And so what happens is they hold on to their loved one, and then they pass away, and then somebody finds them, and they don't know what to do. They didn't know that they were supposed to be buried. So I've actually had an experience where twice a realtor, 2 different times, called and said, we found cremated remains in the house that we're selling. What do we do with them? So you don't want to be kind of like left behind or tossed in the trash. You wouldn't do that with a full body. You wouldn't cut somebody's finger off and take them and put them in a lock and then wear it around your neck. So it's the treatment of the body is very important when living a Christian life. You want to treat the body with reverence and respect, regardless of whether you've chosen cremation or a full body.
You had mentioned something about that, Jen, that there are some interesting trends out there now that people are doing to commemorate their loved ones that would not be considered acceptable.
I've heard about, I'm sure, Debbie, you could talk more to this about, taking some of those remains and putting them in jewelry or a necklace to wear around your neck and things like that. I'm sure you've heard of things, but I love how what your explanation of that person has taken the Eucharist, so it should be in a place of reverence and blessed. That makes so much sense to me. That's beautiful.
It really does. Because
go
ahead.
It's also it's for me. So having experienced probably on my 4th turn now here, my grandmother passed away. She was the first of my adult life where I buried a close family member, and my children were young. They were altar servers. So she was the first to pass, and within a period of 4 years, I buried her, my mother, and my sister.
Oh my gosh!
So it was very, and just in that order, and it was tough to do all of that. My grandmother was 93, so it wasn't a shock to us, but it was still very hard for all of us, and we were a close-knit family. What was very comforting for me, and as I look now back with my dad who just passed in September, I realized what I had done back then was to kind of build a bridge for my children and evangelize them, although that was not my intention, because my girls, not that it was not my intention, but it was just not, that wasn't my object of doing that right there. So my girls were altar servers, and my nephew and my niece were altar servers. So when my grandmother passed, and then my mother and my sister, they all participated in the funeral mass. And for me, that was very healing and helpful. So it kind of, I don't know, you practice your faith. We were practicing our faith. And although it was sad, it was also, I don't know, beautiful in a way, because we were all there at the funeral mass and they all participated. And my sister and I and my father participated with placing the pall, the Bible, the crucifix. So for me, it helped us. Sometimes when people choose cremation, they don't realize the significance, the importance of doing the whole funeral service from the vigil to the funeral mass, and of course, finally with the committal at the cemetery.
And actually, you made a good point there. I think it's often overlooked now that the option for cremation is available, that actually having the traditional funeral with the body present in the casket is actually the preferred mode of Catholic funeral, that the Church encourages people to go ahead and continue using. Maybe because that process and that closure is so important. Maybe that's part of the reason. But it prefers, I just grabbed this from the USCCB website, that the Church prefers and urges that the body of the deceased be present for the funeral rites, since the presence of the human body better expresses the values which the Church affirms in those rites.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct.
Now, you were talking about planning ahead of time. So, I mean, what a gift to be able to give your family to indicate your wishes before there is a need to start planning the actual funeral. What are some of the things that you can plan ahead of time? And I'm thinking of, not only the funeral itself, but also maybe having masses said for the deceased, having them said for yourself in perpetuity.
Actually, funny you should say that. My grandmother, the one who passed in her 90s, she actually had asked me. She was a firm believer in having masses said. So when my grandfather passed away, she lived 30 years after he died. She was always having masses said for him. Mm-hmm. So she said to me, "I'm giving you money here in an envelope. When I die, you have to go have masses said for me." And I'm like, "You don't have to give me money to do that." "No, I want to do that." So, that's actually, and so in a way, she was, I guess, ahead of her time because she thought of that. I want to make sure that there's masses being said. So, pre-planning, of course, you can select if you want to be cremated or do a full body. We would help with that, determining how you feel, what you would want to do, and then we have many options for both. Whether you want to do, a crypt for full body or go on the ground, so we would guide you on choices that are available for both. And we could even cover and talk about the whole funeral service of, do you want a vigil, or do you, some people do the vigil the morning of. I prefer the night before still. And then we would show you, you could then go ahead and plan. Some people can even plan out what readings they want, what music they want during their funeral mass. If they want someone particular to say their eulogy, we're in fact putting together, and many dioceses already have these in funeral homes. We've used a planning guide from the Catholic Cemeteries Committee, but we're now creating our own, and it's going to be right at the end of the year. It's a planning guide for a Catholic funeral. Inside of it lists everything from planning to how you want your funeral to be, and then it also gives detailed information on things like your finances, where they can find your bank account information, your life insurance policy, so all your finance information, and it makes it easier so that when someone passes, all they have to do is pick up this document, and most of the information that they need to know to execute everything after you've passed would be in that. So
that's interesting. It sounds almost like an advanced directive, but for the deceased.
Right. So I was planning for my funeral. It would list everything in there, and I would even, if I had someone in particular that I wanted them to follow what I have, I could list them. I want this person to be in charge of my funeral, and that doesn't have to be the person who's the executor or the executress. It could be somebody different. And having worked in the cemeteries department, you'd be surprised at how many people don't maybe follow what their loved one, what wishes may have been. So you would want to choose somebody that would follow what you have written and what your desires would be, because not always do we have that. And I was surprised at that, how sometimes people just, I think cremation is part of the reason on that too.
That surprises me too. It makes me sad that would happen. I wanted to touch base real quick on something that you had mentioned when you were talking about, the blessings and when you pass away. What if you're, like, let's say, tomorrow, when this airs, November 11th will be Veterans Day. What if you are a veteran and you want to be buried in a veteran cemetery with, your loved one? Are you allowed to be buried outside of a Catholic cemetery if you're Catholic?
Oh, absolutely. So you would have the priest who would do your funeral mass would come to the communal service, and they would bless the ground there. But we also offer, at our Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Berlin, we have a section specifically for veterans, and they get a discount and so forth, and their spouse can be obviously buried with them too. So it's nice because it's a section within a Catholic cemetery that's strictly for veterans, and we have a monument that's there with the flag, the American flag. So
that's beautiful.
And it's nice to know that option's there.
Yeah. What if you're not Catholic? Can you be buried in a Catholic cemetery?
yes, you may be buried in a Catholic cemetery. In the state of New Jersey, we have to sell to, the purchaser has to be Catholic. But so say my husband wasn't Catholic, I would purchase the burial right, and he would be allowed to be buried with me.
That's good.
Not a lot of people know that. I didn't know that before I started working here in the cemeteries department. And my husband wasn't Catholic; he was Protestant, but he actually went through RCIA later in our marriage, so now he is Catholic.
Well, do we have any questions more for Debbie, or?
Is there anything in particular you wish the people would know about planning ahead that would be helpful going into this, so that they kind of be clear-headed about what it is that they want?
So I, having experienced 4 different burials, only one was not with the purchase of a burial plot. So I think when you do decide where it is that you want to be buried and what you want, I think it's important to put it down on paper and to execute that part of it, because for me, that whole week, and so for us, it was like a 5-day event from the time that the person passed to meeting with the funeral home. So there's a lot for my family that we did. We do the whole vigil, we do the funeral, we do the committal, but we also get together and pull pictures together and we make collages, we make a video. So for us, it's a celebration of life. Although we're sad that the person has passed on, we come together and feel some happiness being together and remembering our memories we had with our loved one. So taking the step to pre-plan so that your people know at that time what it is that you want makes it a little easier at the time of need.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. I think that's really good advice. We got to talk about these things before it happens.
That's right. Thank you for being on our program today. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I was going to, she said something about planning eulogies, and I just wanted to put a little capstone on that. I found an article, this is, I think, from Catholic News Agency. We had a Monsignor Francis Mannion wrote an article talking about planning a funeral, and he mentioned that although the funeral planning meeting is no place to argue liturgical principles or lay down the law and outright refuse reasonable requests, a lot of people want to do a eulogy at the funeral, whether it's after the communion and before the end of Mass. That's really not allowed in the Catholic rite, but we have allowed it, I think, just trying to be sensitive to the needs of the bereaved. But just so that people know, it's actually not part of the Catholic rite of funerals. The eulogy is supposed to take place in a more social setting, possibly the vigil the night before, or maybe at the repast after the burial.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to say anything about that, Jen? Had you heard that as well?
I've heard that, and I'm glad you brought it up. I've heard priests talk about that, is that, the Mass is the Mass, and then you remember the person, like you said, the night at the vigil or at the gravesite.
It's our music already.
How'd
that happen?
I have so much more to talk about. Emily, it was great to be back together and chit chat. And listeners, thanks for tuning in to Better Together, and join us next month, where we'll be talking about Christmas and Advent and fun stuff.
Sounds great. Have a blessed month.